I'm Natalie Sanders, and I should have known that morning would change everything. The scent of jasmine and baby's breath filled my downtown Nashville flower shop as I arranged the Henderson wedding bouquet, my fingers working automatically through white roses and eucalyptus. 27 years of perfect heterosexual expectations, and here I was, still single at 32, wondering why every relationship felt like wearing someone else's clothes. The storm had been building all morning. Dark clouds pressed against the shop windows like curious faces, and the humidity made my blonde hair stick to my neck. I was adjusting the final ribbon when the lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. "Damn it," I whispered, glancing at the wall clock. The Henderson wedding was in 3 hours. Outside, rain began pelting the glass in thick sheets. Through the downpour, I could see the utility truck parked across the street, its yellow lights flashing like a beacon. Someone in a hard hat was already climbing the telephone pole, moving with confident precision despite the dangerous conditions. The power restoration crew worked fast. Lightning had fried transformers all along Music Row, leaving half the flower district in darkness. I pressed my face against the rain-streaked window, watching the figure in the safety harness maneuver effortlessly 30 feet above the ground. Even from this distance, I could tell it was a woman. Her movements were too graceful, too fluid for most men I knew. She adjusted something on the power line with expert hands, rain streaming down her yellow safety jacket. When she turned toward my shop, our eyes met through the storm. Those green eyes hit me like electricity itself. She had dark hair escaping from beneath her hard hat, and when she smiled, something inside my chest shifted. Not the polite flutter I'd felt with my ex-boyfriends, but something deeper, more dangerous. The lights flickered back on. My air conditioning hummed to life, but I couldn't look away from the woman on the pole who'd just restored power to my world in more ways than one. She descended with athletic grace, her work boots hitting the pavement with authority. For a moment she stood beside her truck, looking directly at me through the glass. The rain had lightened to a gentle drizzle, and I could see her face clearly now. Beautiful. That was my first coherent thought. Not pretty in the conventional way I'd been trained to notice about other women, but striking. Strong jaw, high cheekbones, and those incredible green eyes that seemed to see straight through my carefully constructed life. She raised her hand in a small wave. I waved back, feeling foolish and exhilarated simultaneously. "Get it together, Natalie," I muttered, turning back to the Henderson bouquet. But my hands were shaking now, and not from the storm. By Friday night, I couldn't shake the image of those green eyes. The Henderson wedding had been perfect, but all week I'd found myself glancing out the shop window, hoping to catch another glimpse of the electrical worker. Marcus, my business partner, kept asking why I seemed distracted, but how could I explain something I didn't understand myself? Murphy's Billiards had become my Friday night ritual since my last relationship ended 6 months ago. The familiar weight of a pool cue in my hands, the satisfying crack of balls breaking apart, the smoky atmosphere where nobody asked questions about my personal life. Tonight I needed the escape more than ever. The place hummed with typical Nashville energy, construction workers, musicians between gigs, and office types unwinding from the week. I claimed my usual table in the back corner, away from the main crowd. The green felt looked perfect under the hanging Tiffany lamp, and I lined up my first practice shot. "You're early tonight." Jake Murphy, the owner, appeared beside my table with a knowing grin. He was pushing 60 with silver hair and arms covered in faded tattoos, a former roadie who'd opened this place after touring with too many country stars to count. "Rough week," I said, sinking the cue ball with more force than necessary. "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." Jake nodded and moved away. He understood the unspoken rule of his establishment. Murphy's was for playing pool and forgetting your problems, not discussing them. I lost myself in the rhythm of the game, 8 ball in the corner pocket, 11 in the side. My father had taught me to play when I was 12, back when he still believed his daughter might follow him into the family construction business instead of wasting time with flowers. 20 years later, I could run a table better than most of the regulars. The front door opened with its familiar squeal of hinges. I glanced up automatically and nearly missed my next shot. The woman from the electrical truck stood just inside the entrance, scanning the room. She'd traded her work clothes for dark jeans and a fitted black t-shirt that showed off lean, muscled arms. Her brunette hair fell loose around her shoulders, and those green eyes were even more striking in the dim light. She moved through the crowded room with quiet confidence, nodding to a few regulars who clearly knew her. Her work boots clicked against the hardwood floor with the same authoritative sound I'd noticed that stormy morning. Several men turned to watch her pass, but she seemed oblivious to their attention. My heart hammered against my ribs as she approached my corner table. "Mind if I watch?" she asked, her voice carrying a slight southern accent. "You've got excellent form." "Sure." The word came out steadier than I'd expected, though I'm just practicing. She leaned against the wall, close enough that I caught a hint of her scent. Something clean and outdoorsy, with traces of rain and electricity. Not the flowery perfumes I was used to associating with women, but something entirely different, something that made my stomach flutter. I lined up my next shot, acutely aware of her presence. The cue ball rolled perfectly, sending the 3 into the corner pocket. "Nice," she said softly. "Very nice." When I looked up, she was smiling. Not the polite, distant smile men usually gave me, but something warmer, more interested. "I'm Erica," she said, extending her hand. "Erica Morgan. Natalie Sanders." Her handshake was firm, confident. Her fingers were slightly rough from manual work, and they lingered against mine a heartbeat longer than necessary. "You work at the flower shop on Music Row," she said. It wasn't a question. "You restored my power Monday morning, among other things." Her smile widened, and I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "Up for a game?" Erica asked, nodding toward the vacant table beside mine. "8 ball?" My competitive streak sparked to life. "You sure about that?" "I think I can handle whatever you've got." There was something in her tone, a playful challenge that sent electricity through my veins. We moved to the fresh table, and she racked the balls with practiced efficiency. Her movements were precise, economical, like everything she did. "Your break," she said, stepping back with the triangle. I chalked my cue, aware of her watching every motion. The break scattered balls across the felt with a satisfying crack. 2 stripes found pockets. "Stripes it is," I said, moving around the table. "Show off." But she was grinning. We played in comfortable silence, punctuated by the click of balls and distant conversations. She was better than I'd expected, sinking impossible shots with casual confidence. When she leaned over the table, her t-shirt pulled tight across her shoulders, and I found myself staring at the lean muscles beneath the fabric. "Your turn," she said quietly. I'd missed my shot completely, lost in watching her move. Heat flushed my cheeks. "Sorry, I'm usually more focused. Am I distracting you?" The question carried more weight than casual conversation. "Maybe a little." She smiled, the kind of smile that suggested she didn't mind being a distraction at all. The game continued, but something had shifted. Each shot became an excuse to move closer, to brush past each other, to catch glimpses when the other wasn't looking. The sexual tension was so thick I could barely breathe. She won by sinking the 8 ball with a bank shot that should have been impossible. "Damn," I said, shaking my head. "Where'd you learn to play like that?" "My dad. He owned a bar in Memphis before the electrical company." She placed her cue in the rack. "Coffee? There's an all-night diner down the block." The Parthenon Diner was nearly empty at midnight. We slid into a corner booth with cracked red vinyl seats and a formica table that had seen better decades. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and somewhere in the kitchen, a radio played classic country. "So," Erica said, wrapping her hands around a steaming mug, flower arrangements, and pool. "Interesting combination. My father wanted me to be a contractor. I rebelled with pedals instead of power tools. And now? Now I love what I do. Even if it's not what anyone expected." She nodded slowly. "I get that. People always assume female electrical workers are trying to prove something. Like we can't just enjoy the work. Is that why you do it?" "Partly. But mostly because there's something pure about electricity. It either works or it doesn't. No gray areas, no politics, just power flowing where it should." Her fingers traced patterns on the table between us, and I found myself mesmerized by their movement. Strong hands with short, practical nails, Hands that worked with dangerous voltage every day. What about relationships? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Sorry, that's too personal. It's okay. She met my eyes directly. I don't really do relationships. Not successfully anyway. With men? With anyone. A pause, heavy with meaning. Though I'm starting to think maybe I've been looking in the wrong places. The air between us shifted, charged with possibility. I felt my pulse quicken, that same electric sensation from the storm-soaked morning when our eyes first met. Natalie. Her voice was softer now, intimate. Can I ask you something? I nodded, not trusting my voice. When you see me, what do you see? The question caught me off guard. I studied her face in the harsh diner light. High cheekbones, those incredible green eyes, full lips that looked impossibly soft. I see someone confident, independent, beautiful. Beautiful. She repeated the word like she was testing its weight. That's not usually the first thing people say about women who climb power lines. Then they're not looking hard enough. Something passed between us in that moment, a recognition that went deeper than words. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. The touch was electric, sending sparks up my arm. I should probably get home, I said, though every cell in my body was screaming to stay. Yeah. But she didn't pull her hand away. Me too. We sat there for another heartbeat, her fingers tracing gentle patterns against my skin. Finally, she squeezed my hand once and released it. Outside the diner, under the glow of streetlights, she turned to face me. I had a really good time tonight. So did I. She stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her body. Her hand came up to cup my cheek, thumb brushing across my skin with infinite gentleness. Natalie. My name was a whisper. She leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. Instead, I met her halfway. Her lips were soft and warm, tasting faintly of coffee. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, then deeper as I responded. My hands found her shoulders, pulling her closer. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless. Wow, I whispered. She smiled, that brilliant smile that had stopped my heart in the flower shop window. Yeah. Wow. The following Tuesday, Erica appeared in my shop doorway like a vision. She wore clean work clothes, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and carried a small paper bag that smelled like fresh coffee. Thought you might need a caffeine break, she said, setting 2 cups on my counter. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. She glanced around the shop, taking in the organized chaos of stems, ribbons, and glass vases. This place suits you, all this beauty you create. I felt myself blush. It's just flowers. No, she said firmly. It's art. You take something living and make it even more beautiful. She spent her lunch break watching me work on a funeral arrangement, asking questions about different blooms and their meanings. Her genuine interest surprised me. Most people saw flowers as decorative afterthoughts, but Erica studied each step like she was learning a new skill. The white lilies represent peace, I explained, trimming stems with practiced precision, and these blue delphiniums symbolize hope. What about roses? They have meanings too, right? Depends on the color. Red for passion, white for new beginnings, yellow for friendship. What about pink? I looked up from my work. Pink roses mean appreciation, gratitude. She smiled. I'll remember that. When she left, I found myself counting hours until her next visit. Saturday morning brought an unexpected text. Want to see something beautiful? Percy Warner Park, noon. Dress for hiking. I'd lived in Nashville 5 years and never explored the park system. Following Erica's directions, I drove through winding roads until I reached a parking area surrounded by towering oaks. She was waiting beside her truck, wearing hiking boots and a faded university t-shirt that made her green eyes even more striking. Ready for an adventure? She asked. The trail wound through dense forest before opening into a meadow that took my breath away. Wildflowers carpeted the ground in every color imaginable. Black-eyed Susans, purple cone flowers, wild bergamot, and dozens of species I couldn't name created a living tapestry that shifted in the gentle breeze. How did you find this place? I whispered, afraid to disturb the natural perfection. I climbed towers all over Middle Tennessee. You see things from up high that most people miss. We spread a blanket under an ancient oak tree, sharing sandwiches and stories. She told me about growing up in Memphis, how she'd learned electrical work from her father before his heart attack forced early retirement. I shared memories of my grandmother's garden, how she'd taught me that flowers had personalities just like people. What made you move to Nashville? I asked. Fresh start. Sometimes you need distance to figure out who you really are. Are you still figuring it out? She looked at me with those intense green eyes. I'm starting to get a clearer picture. The afternoon sun filtered through leaves, creating patterns of light and shadow across her face. When she reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, I caught her hand and pressed it against my cheek. Erica. Yeah? I'm really glad you restored my power that morning. She laughed softly. Best service call I ever made. This time, when she leaned in to kiss me, there was no hesitation. Her lips moved against mine with growing confidence, and I responded with an eagerness that surprised us both. My hands found the back of her neck, fingers tangling in her dark hair. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. We should probably head back, she said, though her arms remained around me. Probably. But neither of us moved. Instead, she kissed me again, deeper this time, her tongue teasing against mine until I made a small sound of pleasure that seemed to surprise us both. Natalie. My name sounded different when she said it, like a prayer or a promise. The drive back to town felt charged with possibility. Every glance, every casual touch as she helped me from her truck, every moment of extended eye contact sent heat spiraling through my body. At my apartment door, she hesitated. I should let you get some rest. You should. But I didn't step inside. Instead, I moved closer, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. This is dangerous, she whispered. Good dangerous or bad dangerous? She cupped my face in both hands, thumbs tracing my cheekbones with infinite tenderness. The best kind of dangerous. This kiss was different from the others, hungrier, more urgent. I pressed against her, feeling her heart hammering against mine. When she nipped gently at my lower lip, I gasped, and she took advantage of my parted lips to deepen the kiss. My apartment door was right behind me. All I had to do was turn the key, invite her inside, see where this electric connection might lead. But something held me back. Not fear exactly, but the knowledge that once we crossed that threshold, everything would change forever. She seemed to sense my hesitation, and pulled back slightly. We don't have to rush this, she said softly. I know. It's just... New? I nodded. Very new. She smiled, that brilliant smile that made my knees weak. Then we'll take it slow. Figure it out together. She kissed my forehead gently, a gesture so tender it made my chest ache. Sweet dreams, Natalie. As I watched her walk away, I realized I was falling for someone who challenged everything I thought I knew about myself, and for the first time in my life, that felt exactly right. The first time I noticed my reflection misbehaving was Tuesday morning, while arranging peonies for the Morrison anniversary party. I glanced up at the antique mirror Marcus had insisted on hanging behind the register, and for a split second, my reflection seemed to be smiling while I wasn't. I blinked hard, chalking it up to lack of sleep. Erica had been occupying my thoughts so completely that rest felt impossible. Every conversation, every touch, every stolen kiss replayed in my mind like a favorite song. But throughout the week, the mirror incidents escalated. My reflection would turn its head a fraction of a second before I did, or gesture while my hands remained still. The antique glass was probably warped, I told myself. Old mirrors played tricks with light. Friday afternoon, Erica appeared in my doorway with that devastating grin that made my heart skip. Busy? She asked. Never too busy for you. She approached the counter where I was working on centerpieces, her presence immediately making the small space feel electric. I've been thinking about our conversation in the meadow, she said softly, her voice carrying undertones that made my pulse quicken. Which part? The part where you said you're glad I restored your power? She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her familiar scent of rain and electricity. Because I've been thinking about all the different kinds of power. and how some connections are stronger than others. Her fingers brushed mine as she reached for a stray rose petal on the counter. Erica. Her name escaped my lips like a sigh. I need to tell you something, she said, her green eyes holding mine with an intensity that made breathing difficult. This thing between us, whatever it is, it's not just attraction for me. It's more how? More like I can't stop thinking about you. More like every electrical job I do reminds me of that first morning when our eyes met. More like I'm falling for you in ways that scare the hell out of me. The words hung between us, charged with possibility and vulnerability. I'm scared too, I admitted. But not of you. Of how right this feels when everything I thought I knew about myself is changing. She moved around the counter, eliminating the last barriers between us. When she reached up to cup my face, I leaned into her touch. Can I kiss you? Instead of answering, I closed the distance between our lips. The kiss started gentle but quickly intensified. Her hands tangled in my blonde hair while mine explored the strong lines of her shoulders. When she pressed me gently against the workbench, I gasped against her mouth. Wait, I whispered, glancing toward the front windows. Anyone could see. Storage room? I took her hand and led her through the narrow doorway into the back room, away from prying eyes. Among the boxes of supplies and spare vases, she turned me to face her again. Are you sure about this? She asked. I've never been more sure of anything. This time when she kissed me, there was no holding back. Her mouth moved against mine with growing urgency while her hands explored the curve of my waist, the small of my back. When I arched against her, she made a soft sound of pleasure that sent heat spiraling through my entire body. I pulled her closer, desperate to feel more of her against me. She responded by lifting me onto the storage counter, stepping between my legs. The position brought our faces level, and when she looked at me with those incredible green eyes, I saw my own desire reflected there. Her lips found the sensitive spot where my neck met my shoulder, and I couldn't suppress the soft moan that escaped. She smiled against my skin before trailing kisses higher, finding the pulse point below my ear. You feel so good, she whispered, her breath warm against my skin. My hands found the hem of her t-shirt, sliding underneath to explore the warm skin beneath. She was all lean muscle and soft curves, and touching her felt like coming alive. We moved together with growing urgency, hands exploring, mouths finding new territories to claim. When she pressed closer, I wrapped my legs around her waist, pulling her against me until we were breathing the same air. The sensation of her body against mine was overwhelming. Every nerve ending felt electrified, every touch sending shockwaves through my system. This was what I'd been missing with every man I'd ever dated, this perfect alignment of desire and emotion. Just as things were reaching a crescendo, I caught sight of something that made me freeze. In the small mirror beside the supply shelves, my reflection was moving differently than I was. While I was looking at Erica, my reflection was turning to stare directly at me with an expression I'd never seen on my own face. What's wrong? Erica asked, following my gaze. I blinked hard, and the reflection snapped back to normal. Nothing. I just thought I saw something. But the moment was broken. Erica helped me down from the counter, her hands gentle and concerned. We moved too fast, she said. I'm sorry. No, it's not that, it's just... I struggled to explain the unexplainable, the mirror. My reflection has been acting strange lately. She looked at me with those understanding green eyes. Strange how? Like it's not quite synced with what I'm actually doing. I know it sounds crazy. You don't sound crazy. She pulled me close, holding me against her chest where I could hear her steady heartbeat. Maybe your reflection is just catching up with who you're becoming. Her words sent a shiver through me, partly because they felt somehow true, and partly because I wasn't sure I was ready for whoever that might be. The following Monday, Erica arrived at the shop with grease-stained work clothes and an expression I'd never seen before. Tense, almost angry. Rough morning? I asked, arranging white orchids for a corporate event. You could say that. She leaned against the counter, her usual easy confidence replaced by something harder. My crew had some interesting opinions about my weekend plans. What kind of opinions? The kind where they suddenly have suggestions about my personal life. Her jaw tightened. Apparently, spending time with the flower shop girl is raising questions about my priorities. Heat flashed through me, part anger and part something else I couldn't name. What did you tell them? That my personal life is none of their damn business. She ran a hand through her dark hair. But it's complicated. These guys, they're not bad people. They just don't understand. Understand what exactly? She met my eyes, and I saw vulnerability beneath the frustration. That this matters. That you matter. Before I could respond, Marcus emerged from the back room carrying an armload of ribbon spools. He took one look at Erica's work clothes and tense posture and seemed to read the entire situation. Natalie, can I speak with you privately? My stomach dropped. Marcus had been my business partner for 3 years, watching me stumble through failed relationships with a parade of unsuitable men. He'd never interfered before. I'll wait outside, Erica said, squeezing my hand briefly before heading for the door. Marcus waited until she was gone before turning to face me with his arms crossed. Okay, what's going on? What do you mean? Don't play dumb. You've been different all week, distracted, glowing, checking your phone every 5 minutes. And now this woman shows up looking like she wants to punch something. I felt defensive heat rise in my chest. Her name is Erica, and she's dealing with some workplace issues. Workplace issues about you? The question hung in the air between us. Marcus was one of my closest friends, but I wasn't ready for this conversation, especially when I was still figuring things out myself. It's complicated, I said finally. Natalie. His voice softened. You know I support you, whatever makes you happy, but this is affecting the business. The Morrison party order was wrong, you mixed up delivery dates twice last week, and right now you look like you'd rather be anywhere but here. He was right, and we both knew it. My carefully organized world was shifting, and I couldn't seem to maintain my usual focus. I care about her, I admitted. More than I expected to. Her? Marcus raised an eyebrow. As in, romantically? The word felt strange in my mouth. Yes. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but Nat, if this is new territory for you, maybe take it slow. Figure out what you want before you turn everything upside down. Through the front window, I could see Erica pacing beside her truck, phone pressed to her ear. Even at a distance, her agitation was visible. I should go talk to her. Yeah, you should. Outside, Erica was ending her call with obvious frustration. When she saw me, some of the tension left her shoulders. Everything okay with Marcus? He's worried about me. About us affecting my work. Is he right? I considered lying, but the truth felt more important. Maybe a little. She nodded grimly. My supervisor wants to see me this afternoon. Apparently, someone reported that I was distracted on the job Friday. Were you? Hell yes, I was distracted. I spent the entire morning replaying every second of what happened in your storage room. Her green eyes found mine. No regrets, but yeah, definitely distracted. The memory sent heat through my body despite our current crisis. What does this mean for us? I don't know. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to that intimate tone that made my knees weak. But I know I'm not walking away from this. From you. Even if it causes problems at work? Especially then. Her hand found mine, fingers interlacing with a confidence I envied. Natalie, I've spent my entire adult life being what other people expected. Tough enough for the job, invisible enough to avoid complications. But with you, I feel like myself for the first time. I don't even know who myself is anymore. Then we'll figure it out together. She pulled me closer, and I found myself caught between her warmth and the cool metal of her truck. When she leaned down to kiss me, I forgot about Marcus's concerns and workplace politics and everything except the way her lips moved against mine. The kiss was soft but insistent, full of promises and questions I wasn't ready to answer. When she pulled back, her thumb traced my lower lip with infinite gentleness. I have to go deal with my supervisor, she said. But tonight, can we just be us? No outside opinions, no complications. Your place or mine? Yours. I want to see where you live, how you arrange your space. That evening, I found myself nervous in ways I hadn't experienced since high school. I changed clothes 3 times, settling finally on a simple dress that made me feel feminine without trying too hard. When Erica arrived with takeout Thai food and a bottle of wine, she looked at me like I was something precious. "You look beautiful," she said, her eyes taking in every detail. "So do you." She'd traded her work clothes for dark jeans and a soft gray sweater that brought out her eyes. Without her boots, she was slightly shorter, more approachable somehow. We ate dinner on my couch, talking about everything except the elephant in the room. When she kissed me goodnight at the door, it was with a tenderness that made my chest ache. "Sleep well," she whispered against my lips. As I watched her drive away, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. For just a moment, it seemed like the woman looking back at me was smiling with a confidence I hadn't felt yet. But this time, the thought didn't scare me. Wednesday brought the kind of severe weather that made even experienced electrical workers nervous. I woke to meteorologists warning of dangerous thunderstorms across Middle Tennessee, and my first thought was of Erica working 30 feet above the ground in those conditions. The mirror in my bedroom showed my reflection looking more worried than I felt, her brow furrowed with anxiety that seemed to echo from somewhere deeper than conscious thought. I shook my head and turned away, focusing instead on the massive wedding order waiting at the shop. The Pemberton wedding was Nashville society at its finest. 500 white roses, cascading arrangements that would cost more than most people's cars, and a bride whose mother had already called 6 times about petal placement. This was the kind of event that could make or break a florist's reputation. Marcus arrived early, his efficiency masking concern about the weather. "Power's already flickering," he said, checking our backup generator. "If this storm hits hard, we could lose everything." I glanced at the coolers full of delicate blooms, then at my phone. "No messages from Erica yet." "She knows what she's doing," Marcus said gently, reading my expression. "I know. It's just, you care about her. More than I probably should, considering I've known her 3 weeks." The first thunderclap rattled the shop windows. Through the glass, I could see utility trucks already moving through the streets, crews positioning for inevitable outages. Somewhere out there, Erica was climbing poles in increasingly dangerous conditions. My phone buzzed with a text, "Emergency calls all morning. Storm's bad. Stay safe." I typed back, "You too. Please be careful." The reply came immediately, "Always am. See you tonight?" Before I could answer, the lights went out. "Damn," Marcus muttered, fumbling for his flashlight. "Generator should kick in any second." But the backup power didn't engage. In the sudden darkness, surrounded by hundreds of delicate flowers that needed refrigeration, I felt panic rising in my throat. "The Pemberton wedding is in 6 hours, I whispered. "We'll figure it out." Through the storm-darkened windows, I could see emergency vehicles with flashing lights moving through the streets. The Weather Service was now calling it a severe thunderstorm warning with possible tornado activity. My phone rang. Erica's name on the screen sent relief flooding through me. "Are you okay?" I answered. "I'm fine, but half the city's without power. We're prioritizing hospitals and emergency services first." "What about the Flower District?" A pause that told me everything. "Probably not until tonight at the earliest, maybe tomorrow." My heart sank. Without refrigeration, the Pemberton flowers would be wilted within hours. 3 months of planning and thousands of dollars in blooms, ruined. "Natalie, you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here, just processing." "Look, I'll do what I can. But I can't make promises about timing." "I understand. Just be safe, okay? Don't take risks for flowers. These aren't just flowers. This is your livelihood." The tenderness in her voice made my chest ache. Here she was, dealing with city-wide power outages and dangerous working conditions, but worried about my business. "Erica, I'm serious. Don't do anything dangerous for my sake. I have to go. Another crew is calling for backup." The line went dead, leaving me in darkness with Marcus and hundreds of dying flowers. The next few hours passed in a blur of frantic phone calls and desperate measures. We moved what we could to other florists with backup power, but most of the wedding order was lost. Mrs. Pemberton's reaction when I called was exactly as devastating as expected. "This is completely unacceptable," she screamed through the phone. Do you have any idea what this wedding costs? We'll be ruined. Ma'am, I understand your frustration, but this is a natural disaster. I don't care. Find a solution or we'll sue you for everything you're worth. By afternoon, the storm had passed, but the damage was done. The Pemberton wedding would proceed with whatever flowers we could salvage from other sources, and my reputation would likely never recover. Marcus tried to stay positive. Insurance will cover the lost inventory, and maybe the Pembertons will be reasonable once they calm down. But we both knew better. In Nashville's tight-knit social circles, word of disaster spread faster than gossip. My phone buzzed constantly with updates from the weather service, each one more ominous than the last. Tornado watches, flash flood warnings, and power outages affecting most of Middle Tennessee. Around 4 o'clock, I finally got a text from Erica, heading to emergency call in Bellevue. Bad accident with lines down, maybe late tonight. I stared at the message, reading between the lines. Emergency calls were the most dangerous, usually involving downed power lines and unstable conditions. My hands started shaking. In the antique mirror behind the register, my reflection looked back with an expression of pure terror. But this time, the fear in her eyes seemed more real than what I was actually feeling, as if she knew something I didn't. That's it, I said aloud, startling Marcus. I'm going crazy. The mirror thing again? I nodded, unable to trust my voice. Maybe you should see someone about that. Stress can do weird things to perception. But as I watched, my reflection mouthed words I wasn't speaking. She's in danger. The room suddenly felt freezing cold, and every instinct I possessed screamed that something was terribly wrong. I grabbed my keys and phone, heading for the door. Where are you going? Marcus called. To find her. Natalie, that's insane. You don't even know where she is, and the roads are dangerous. But I was already gone, driving through scattered debris and standing water toward Bellevue, following an intuition that felt more urgent than rational thought. My reflection in the rearview mirror smiled grimly, as if she approved of the decision. For the first time, we seemed to be in agreement about something. I found the accident site 20 minutes later, marked by emergency vehicles and orange cones blocking half the road. A utility pole had snapped during the storm, bringing down power lines that writhed on the wet asphalt like electric serpents. The scene looked like a war zone. 2 ambulances sat with lights flashing, and my heart stopped when I saw Erica's truck among the utility vehicles. I parked as close as I could and ran toward the chaos, rain soaking through my clothes within seconds. Ma'am, you need to stay back, a police officer said, catching my arm. The electrical worker, Erica Morgan, is she okay? He looked toward the accident scene, where workers in safety gear moved carefully around the downed lines. There was an incident about an hour ago. Someone made contact with a live wire. My knees nearly buckled. Is she alive? Ma'am, I can't give out that information. You family? I hesitated. What was I, exactly? Someone she'd known 3 weeks? Someone she kissed in storage rooms and took hiking in wildflower meadows? I'm her girlfriend, I said, the words feeling both foreign and absolutely true. The officer's expression softened. Emergency room at Vanderbilt, that's all I can tell you. The drive to the hospital passed in a blur of rain-slicked streets, and fear so intense it felt like drowning. In the parking garage, I caught sight of my reflection in the car window. For the first time in days, my mirror image moved in perfect sync with me, both of us running toward the emergency entrance with identical expressions of desperate hope. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and fear. I approached the reception desk with shaking hands. Erica Morgan. She was brought in from an electrical accident. The nurse checked her computer. Are you family? Girlfriend. The word came easier this time. She's stable, the nurse said, and I nearly collapsed with relief. Minor electrical burn and some bruising from the fall. Doctor wants to observe her overnight, but she should be fine. Can I see her? Room 314. But visiting hours end at 9. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor, my legs still unsteady. Room 314 was halfway down a sterile corridor that smelled like floor wax and worry. Erica was sitting up in bed, her left arm bandaged and her hair escaping from a messy ponytail. When she saw me in the doorway, her face transformed with surprise and something deeper. "Natalie? How did you know I was here?" I crossed the room in 3 steps and pulled her into a careful embrace, mindful of her injuries. She felt solid and warm and alive, and I buried my face against her neck, breathing in her familiar scent. "I saw the accident scene," I whispered. "When you didn't answer your phone, I thought—" "Hey." Her uninjured hand stroked my hair. "I'm okay, just got a little too close to a live wire." "A little too close?" I pulled back to look at her. "You could have been killed." But I wasn't. Rubber boots and safety equipment did their job. "Don't joke about this." Tears I hadn't realized I was holding back started flowing. "I was so scared, Erica. I couldn't stand the thought of losing you." Her green eyes searched my face. "Losing me?" "Yes, damn it, losing you." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "I know we've only known each other 3 weeks, and I know this is all new for me, but I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I think I'm already there." Her expression shifted, becoming tender and intense simultaneously. "Natalie, I know it's crazy. I know I don't even understand what this means for my life, but—" She silenced me with a kiss, gentle because of our position but full of emotion that made my heart race. When we broke apart, she was smiling. "I love you too," she said simply. "Have, since that first morning when you waved at me through the rain." Relief flooded through me so completely that I laughed through my tears. Really, though I was trying to take things slow, let you figure yourself out. I don't need to figure anything out, I just need you." She pulled me closer, and I settled carefully beside her on the narrow hospital bed. Her arm came around me, holding me against her side where I could hear her heart beating steadily. "The accident made me realize something," she said quietly. "Life's too short to waste time being careful." When I felt that electricity go through me, my first thought wasn't about the pain. It was about never getting to hold you again. I tilted my head to look at her. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we stop worrying about what other people think, or how fast we're moving, or whether this fits into either of our old lives. And do what instead? Build something new, together." The simplicity of it took my breath away. All my fears about labels and expectations and what people would think suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the woman holding me. "Your place or mine?" I asked, echoing our conversation from days earlier. "Ours," she said, kissing my forehead. "Eventually." We stayed like that for the rest of visiting hours, talking quietly about possibilities and promises. When I finally had to leave, she caught my hand. "Natalie?" "Yeah?" "Tomorrow, when I get discharged, I want to take you somewhere." "Where?" "Home. My real home. I want you to see where I grew up. Meet the people who made me who I am." The invitation felt momentous, like crossing a threshold into something permanent. I'd love that. Even if my family asks a million questions about my new girlfriend? Especially then. As I drove home through the quiet Nashville streets, I caught sight of my reflection in the rearview mirror one last time. She was smiling the same smile I felt on my own face, and for the first time in weeks, we were perfectly synchronized. I realized the mirror had been showing me who I was becoming all along. Someone brave enough to love without reservation, confident enough to claim what she wanted, authentic enough to stop hiding from herself. Someone who was finally ready to live as her true self, whatever that might mean. The antique mirror came down on a Tuesday morning in March, 1 year after that first storm brought Erica into my life. Marcus helped me carry it to the back room, where it would eventually find its way to a consignment shop run by someone who appreciated mysterious old things. "You sure about this?" he asked, adjusting his grip on the ornate frame. "Completely sure." I watched our reflections disappear as we maneuvered it through the doorway. "I don't need it anymore." The shop looked brighter without the mirror's dark presence. In its place, I'd hung a simple photograph Erica had taken of wildflowers in Percy Warner Park, the meadow where we'd first kissed surrounded by natural beauty. Spring wedding season was in full swing, and business had recovered beautifully from the Pemberton disaster. Word of mouth traveled both ways in Nashville society, and it turned out that standing by your principles during a crisis earned more respect than I'd expected. The bell above the door chimed, announcing a familiar visitor. Erica entered carrying 2 coffee cups and wearing civilian clothes, her electrical worker days behind her since she'd started her own contracting business. "Busy morning?" she asked, setting my usual order on the counter. "The Vanderbilt wedding is keeping me occupied. 12 bridesmaids, each wanting different bouquet styles. Sounds like organized chaos. The best kind." She leaned across the counter to steal a quick kiss, a gesture that had become as natural as breathing over the past year. I still felt that familiar spark every time our lips met, but now it was accompanied by something deeper. Security, belonging, home. "Speaking of organized chaos," she said, pulling back with a grin that made my heart skip. "I have something for you. It's not my birthday. It's not that kind of something." She reached into her jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. My breath caught in my throat. "Erica, before you say anything, let me explain." She came around the counter to stand beside me, the box still closed in her palm. "I know we've talked about the future, about building something together, but I want to make it official." "Official how?" "The permanent kind of official." She opened the box to reveal a simple platinum band set with a small but perfect diamond. "Natalie Sanders, will you marry me?" The world seemed to stop. Outside, Nashville continued its daily rhythm, but inside the flower shop, everything crystallized into this single moment of perfect clarity. "You're proposing," I said unnecessarily. "I'm proposing." Her green eyes held mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. "In the place where you first waved at me through the window, where we had our first real conversation about taking chances. That was Murphy's Billiards. This is where I first saw you, where I knew my life was about to change completely." I looked at the ring, then at her face, then at the spot where the mysterious mirror had hung for so many months. The woman I'd become over the past year felt strong enough to handle whatever came next. "Yes," I said simply. Her smile could have powered half of Nashville. She slipped the ring onto my finger with hands that were steadier than mine, then pulled me into a kiss that tasted like promises and forever. When we broke apart, we were both laughing and crying simultaneously. "Mrs. Morgan," she whispered against my lips. "I like the sound of that." "Me too." The shop door chimed again, and Marcus appeared with an armload of delivery boxes. He took one look at our faces, then at the ring on my finger, and broke into a grin. "Finally," he said. "I was starting to think you two would never get around to it." "You knew?" "Natalie, she's been carrying that ring for 3 months. Every time she came in here, she looked like she was about to explode with secrets." I turned to stare at Erica. 3 months? I wanted to wait for the right moment. What made today the right moment? This morning I woke up and couldn't imagine spending another day without knowing for sure that you'd be in my life forever. That evening, we returned to Murphy's Billiards for the first time since that night when everything began. Jake had reserved our original corner table, and half the regulars seemed to know why we were there before we announced anything. "Congratulations," Jake said, bringing us a bottle of champagne. "About time someone put a ring on Nashville's best pool player." "Second best," Erica corrected with a grin. "She still beats me most of the time." We played a few games, but mostly we talked about the future, the house we'd been looking at in East Nashville, the possibility of expanding Erica's contracting business, whether we wanted a big wedding or something small and intimate. "What do you think?" she asked as I lined up a difficult shot. "Spring wedding next year? Too long to wait. Fall? Still too long." She laughed. "How long do you want to wait?" I sank the 8-ball with a satisfying crack, then turned to face her. "How about tomorrow?" "Tomorrow's a little ambitious, even for us." "Next month? You sure about that? Don't you want time to plan something elaborate?" I moved closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. "Erica, I spent 32 years not knowing who I really was. Now I do. The only elaborate thing I need is a lifetime with you." She pulled me into her arms right there beside the pool table, kissing me with a passion that made several regulars whistle appreciatively. "Next month it is," she whispered against my lips. 6 weeks later, we were married in Percy Warner Park, surrounded by wildflowers and the people who mattered most. Marcus walked me down the makeshift aisle while Jake served as Erica's best man. My dress was simple, elegant, and complemented by a bouquet of pink roses that I'd arranged myself. As we exchanged vows under the same oak tree where we'd first kissed, I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago. Someone who thought she understood her life, who had everything planned and predictable. Someone who would have been terrified by the idea of loving this fearlessly. Now, looking into Erica's eyes as she promised to love me through whatever storms might come, I felt nothing but gratitude for the lightning that had brought her into my world. "You may kiss your wife," the officiant announced. When Erica's lips met mine, sealing our marriage and our future, I heard the distinctive crack of a perfect break. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled, but this time it sounded like applause. Later, at the reception in a downtown venue filled with flowers from my shop, we danced to old country songs while Nashville's skyline glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows. In every reflection, I saw the same thing, a woman who had finally learned to live authentically, completely, fearlessly. "No regrets?" Erica asked as we swayed together. "Only one." "What's that?" "That it took a power outage to bring us together. We could have been doing this for years." She laughed, the sound I'd grown to love above all others. "Maybe, but I think we found each other exactly when we were supposed to. When we were ready. When we were brave enough." As the evening wound down and our guests began to leave, we slipped away from the celebration to walk hand in hand through the quiet Nashville streets. The city looked different now, painted with the golden glow of streetlights and possibility. "Where to now, Mrs. Morgan?" Erica asked. "Home," I said, loving how natural the word felt. "Our home. I like the sound of that." "Me too." We walked through the spring night toward whatever came next, two women who had found their way to each other through storm and electricity, through fear and courage, through all the beautiful uncertainty of learning to love without limits. Behind us, the city hummed with its own kind of power, but the strongest current flowed between our joined hands, connecting us to a future bright enough to illuminate any darkness that might come.